Albert Einstein is considered the greatest mind of the 20th century, with fundamental theories that redefined the forces of nature. Albert Einstein can be said to be one of the most influential people in the history of human science. When humans believed we already understood enough about the universe, Einstein showed us that humanity actually knew nothing. His genius surpassed all the limits of science up to that point. A remarkable individual who opened up the mysteries of the universe, presenting theories that allowed humans to think about time travel, along with countless other crazy ideas that were hundreds of years ahead of the world. So have you ever wondered where the extraordinary intelligence of exceptional individuals like Einstein came from? Most of us think it's simply innate talent, combined with relentless effort. Others believe that the genius possessed by Einstein, Tesla, or Da Vinci came from another world or world, with a civilization more advanced than humankind. Could this be true? Could another species have influenced the development of humans through a few exceptional individuals? We will clarify this in today's video. Welcome to the Primitive Universes and the Distant Worlds episode 1. Einstein and the Genius Minds from Another World. Speaking of Albert Einstein, perhaps the first thing people remember about him is the theory of relativity. In reality, not everyone can fully understand the message the scientist intended to convey through his theory, and not everyone completely agrees with everything he proposed. On an island during the 1919 eclipse, astrophysicist Arthur Eddington was trying to find evidence to further prove the general theory of relativity that Einstein had introduced earlier. The general theory of relativity basically states that light will bend when influenced by an extremely strong gravitational field. Arthur Eddington observed and recorded the light from stars behind the sun during a solar eclipse. He saw that the path of starlight was bent by the sun's mass. That may sound vague, but you can understand it simply. When a total solar eclipse occurs, the sun's light is completely blocked, yet you can still see light from stars located behind the sun. This proves that the starlight was bent, traveling around the sun to reach the observer's position. The results of this experiment shocked the scientific community and the public. It confirmed Einstein's theory of relativity, turning this brilliant genius into a global celebrity overnight, and leading to the inclusion of the concept of relativity in academic curriculum. Einstein's discoveries redefined classic physical laws established by Isaac Newton centuries earlier. They also gave humanity an entirely new perspective on the workings of the universe. Before relativity, human understanding of space and time was limited to a specific context. Einstein elevated humanity's understanding to a new level. Why could one person make such monumental discoveries? Where did these insights come from? Were they the natural brilliance of a scientist? Or did he learn them from someone else? From a very young age, Einstein showed great curiosity about the invisible forces in the world. It is said that once, while he was ill, his father showed him a compass. The boy was stunned when he saw an invisible force keeping the needle pointed in one direction. He began asking himself what it was and how it happened. After graduating in physics from the Swiss Federal Polytechnic, Einstein worked at a patent office. Although this was not his dream job, it gave him precious time to study the mysteries that had fascinated him. During this time, something noteworthy happened to our brilliant scientist. There is evidence suggesting he communicated with a force far beyond human understanding at that time. Einstein was extremely skilled at putting himself into altered states of consciousness. Wadika thought experiments, a kind of metaphorical three-dimensional illusion. More specifically, it was as if he transported himself to a place most of us could never reach, exploring that mental space. This allowed him to generate unique and daring new ideas far beyond existing theories. Thought experiments allowed him to visualize or approach problems in an entirely new way. For example, Einstein liked to think about what would change if he were sitting on a spacecraft moving at the speed of light. In 1905, after a long period immersed in thought experiments, he wrote 4 consecutive papers that redefined humanity's understanding of the universe in many ways. One of these papers proved that atoms actually exist, a controversial idea at the time. His paper also described the photoelectric effect. The world agreed that light behaved as a wave, but Einstein said no. In his view, light behaved as particles. This concept led science to the idea of stimulated light, which eventually gave us lasers used in eye surgery, weapons, and metal cutting. And of course, we cannot forget the legendary equation Einstein. S formula stating that mass and energy are proportional through the constancy. Energy can be converted into mass, and vice versa. It states that one can generate enormous energy from a very small amount of mass. This led to the development of nuclear and thermonuclear energy, an incredible series of achievements for a scientific career. Many people spend their entire lives working to publish one theory. Yet Einstein did all this in 1 year. Yes, all within a single year. Where did Einstein's profound insights originate? Was his altered state of consciousness a way to connect with another world? Before people questioned the link between Einstein and another realm, he himself had conducted research on this topic. It appears in a classified manuscript he co-authored titled Relationships with Biological Entities from Extraterrestrial Planets. The 6-page document is the earliest known use of the phrase, extraterrestrial biological entities. In June 1947, their manuscript stated that the presence of UFOs had been acknowledged by the military. It discussed potential issues relating to UFOs and extraterrestrials when interacting with humans. Where might these beings come from? What relationships could exist with them? What laws apply to them? What should we do if they settle on Earth or intend to invade? And why are they here? The document also suggested that if extraterrestrial biological entities wished to live on Earth, traditional concepts of law would have to change significantly, potentially creating an international planetary law. However, this information is not enough to establish a direct connection between Einstein and a higher civilization. Einstein said that when he first developed relativity, it felt as though a violent storm passed through his mind. This implies he had an extraordinary brain with complex mental connections, unlike ordinary logic. Einstein was said to be able to sit still for hours, working and forming ideas, before writing anything down. Isn't that strange? Shouldn't ideas come from sketches or notes? How could sitting still bring forth complete theories unless it was his way of tapping into knowledge from somewhere more advanced? No one could answer this mystery while he was alive. When he died, scientists even dissected his brain in hopes of discovering the secret behind his mysterious thought experiments. On April 18, 1955, in New Jersey, Einstein died of an aortic aneurysm. Hours later, pathologist Thomas Harvey carefully removed his brain and preserved it in formalin. He injected 10% formalin through the internal carotid artery and preserved brain fragments and celluloid as noted. The brain was later cut into many small pieces. Neuroscientists wanted to know what made Einstein so different. Numerous studies were conducted. According to reports, Einstein's brain had a higher than normal number of glial cells, particularly 73% more in the left hemisphere. Glial cells nourish neurons and provide oxygen. A second study at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, in 1996, concluded that Einstein's neurons were more tightly interconnected, allowing faster and more efficient information processing. In 1999, scientists at McMaster University in Ontario found that part of Einstein's frontal lobe, the inferior parietal region, was missing a fold. They believed this absence helped stimulate neural communication, making Einstein's thinking more fluid. Other research in 2012 revealed an additional ridge in the midfrontal lobe. Associated with planning and memory, Einstein had 4 ridges, while most people have 3. These studies show that Einstein's brain was indeed structurally different. But what explains these unusual genetic structures? Could they be the key that allowed him to access another realm? Did Einstein evolve far beyond a soar? Was he helped? Could his brain contain genetic structures not from Earth? Maybe studying Einstein's brain and his altered states of consciousness isn't enough to convince you he was not fully human. But remember, history has many other geniuses with similar mysteries. The strange methods used by geniuses date back thousands of years. In Athens, Greece, outside the Hellenic Military Academy stands a statue of Socrates, the founder of Western philosophy. Those who lived with him described him as strange. He would spend hours thinking in silence without sharing anything with anyone. It was very similar to the altered states used by Einstein. One famous example, while serving in the army during the siege of Patadia, Socrates was found sitting motionless, lost in thought to Van. While under threat, he sat still for hours, an unimaginable level of mental endurance. Socrates even claimed he could communicate with a demon, a spirit or godlike entity. In Greek culture, gods communicating with humans was considered normal. So was Socrates mentally unstable or truly communicating with another realm? If Einstein and Socrates accessed higher knowledge, then perhaps other geniuses did too. Leonardo da Vinci described lying on a bed, lighting a candle, watching the flickering flame reflect on the ceiling, inducing a trance-like state that triggered new inventions. Puccini said his opera Madame Butterfly was whispered to him by God. Remo said his music came from something beyond himself. Nikola Tesla, in the early 1900s, stunned the world with groundbreaking innovations in electrical engineering. Tesla wrote that his ideas came almost entirely from vivid mental imagery, so strong that he could design a motor entirely in his mind before building it. Tesla believed in extraterrestrial life and believed he could connect with other galaxies. In declassified FBI documents titled Nikola Tesla, Part 3 of 3, a passage claims that extraterrestrials told the FBI Tesla was from Venus. Brought to Earth in 1856 and raised by a Yugoslavian couple, Tesla's inventions after age 40 remain classified, but what he accomplished before 40 is enough to suggest he was not an ordinary human. He created the alternating current system billions use daily. Without a C, most of us wouldn't have electricity. Edison opposed a C, claiming it was dangerous, even electrocuting animals. In response, Tesla shocked the public by lighting 90,000 bulbs simultaneously at the 1893 Chicago Expo, proving a C's safety. Tesla even predicted smartphones 74 years early. In a conversation with John Kennedy in 1926, he said that wireless connectivity would turn Earth into a giant brain, allowing instant communication, video calls, and pocket-sized devices. He also invented an anti-gravity aircraft similar to UFOs. In 1911, Tesla claimed his aircraft didn't need wings or propellers and could hover peacefully in strong winds. Did he succeed? I believe yes, but everything after age 40 is buried in classified US government archives. One part comes from the largest giant size in the world. Can you guess how big it is? Currently, there is even a village located within this mysterious stone circle. The monolithic stones are incredibly large, each weighing 205 tons. On the outside of this large circle, there are some very rare types of stones. Inside, there are two smaller circles, and coincidentally, each of these smaller circles is exactly the size of Stevie. Surrounding Arburi are stone boulevards, leading to many local landscapes and other special sites, such as the Superburi Hill, the largest artificial hill in Europe, or the Long West Tennis Tomb, a giant burial chamber dating back 6,000 years. It spans over 11 hectares. Aspari, which has been around for over 4,000 years, was used for sacred ceremonies, where the local people celebrated the harvest seasons and other important events. It seems that rituals were an essential part of ancient society. Somehow, ancient people knew how to calculate the natural cycles. Such constructions could not have been a product of mere chance. They certainly involved complex calculations from intellectual knowledge, perhaps even from extraterrestrial sources. Just like Stonehenge, a place is a gathering place during the solstices, but we have no clear idea of what really happened during these ancient ceremonies. One ritual is often described as follows. When the full moon rose, bathed in a pale pink hue, slowly ascending into the night sky, the silver light of the moon poured down, soaking the stone circle at Apuri, casting shadows around the massive stones. The foggy night air filled with a sense of anticipation, and suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged from behind one of the giant stones in the center. The man's head revealed eerie wolf-like features. The crowd gathered around the large stone circle, breathing heavily, the sound of drums rising in rhythm. The shaman moved gracefully from one stone to another, dancing in a circle, his feet stirring the dew-covered grass. The crowd joined in, and the rhythm grew faster and more intense. Suddenly, he stopped, drew a fresh cow heart from his bag, still warm and oozing blood. Slowly, the shaman raised the heart high, the blood dripping down onto his mask, and he let out a long, mournful scream that echoed through the sky. This description comes from a popular propaganda document about the Stone Age society of that region. I'm not sure how accurate these details are compared to reality, but would you agree that the ceremony sounds perfectly timed, intricate, and grand? Perhaps all the display was meant to attract the attention of some supernatural force. I believe that extraterrestrial beings visited this place in the past, and they left behind a special way of communicating through these rituals. The Asbury Circle itself is a marker, an indication for these beings to pinpoint where they would land. When exploring new land, you often need something to mark the spot, right? In the book Architect of the Universe, Asbury is presented as one of the key mysteries in British history. It looks like a perfect Earth model. First, notice the east-west road, which cuts through the Asbury Circle, as this might represent the equator of Earth. Also, have you noticed that the Asbury Circle is slightly tilted to the left? It forms a 23-degree angle with the north, but this is not due to construction errors, as the straight line connecting the centers of the two inner circles also forms the same angle. This design must have been intentional. However, if we seriously consider the controversial hypothesis mentioned above, we will notice that this tilt matches the current tilt of Earth's axes. The Asbury stone circle is not a perfect circle. It was previously thought that ancient people couldn't make such a perfect circle. But there are many examples of perfect stone circles in England, including Stonehenge and smaller circles within Asbury. So, why wasn't Asbury built as a perfect circle? That's because Earth itself is not a perfect sphere. As Earth spins, it bulges at the equator and narrows at the poles, much like a pumpkin. This is what we discover when studying Asbury. The east-west diameter of the stone circle is longer than the north-south diameter, just like the actual Earth. We can also recognize the small circle to the north of Asbury as a model of Stonehenge, as I mentioned earlier. But why is it located here? The answer is that Stonehenge is in the northern hemisphere, both on Earth and in the Earth model that Asbury represents. What we have here is a monumental picture of Earth, suspended in space. A picture with Stonehenge clearly marked for all of us to see. This is undoubtedly a groundbreaking hypothesis, one that could overturn all prior understandings of history, not just about the Asbury stone circle, but about human history itself. In our knowledge, these were just Stone Age humans who hunted and gathered, just starting to develop agriculture and live in primitive huts made from wood and mud. It is hard to imagine these primitive humans had the technology and organizational structure needed to move massive stone blocks into these stone circles with such high-level precision. Similarly to Stonehenge, Erite didn't just managed to do that. They also drew a highly accurate picture of Earth, as if seen from space. Such revelations may be hard to believe at first, but think about it a little longer. Let the concept settle and become more normal. Then, if you're still not convinced, we'll move on to other evidence. Asbury truly is a model of Earth, suspended in space. The evidence for this claim lies in the southern circle, the small crescent-shaped inner circle, in the Architect of the Universe. The author clearly explains that the crescent-shaped stones inside this circle represent the Sandwich Islands in the South Atlantic. Furthermore, the latitude of Stonehenge's circle and the latitude of the crescent-shaped islands are precisely marked on the Asbury circle by the exact number of stones used. We're not talking about ancient humans knowing how to measure the latitude of Earth's lines. Right. Obviously, it's impossible for them to have measured these details. We still don't know what measuring instruments were used to create the Stone circle, but there is evidence to suggest that ancient people could measure latitudes. In the book mentioned, the author proves that the prime number 7 is a divine number, closely related to the number approximating pi, which is 22/7. These numbers, 7 and 22, were used multiple times in sacred structures. When we divide the Earth's full 360-degree circle into 7 parts, the result is 51.42857,143. When we convert this number into degrees, minutes, and seconds, we get 51 degrees, 25 minutes, and 43 seconds. It is a surprise that the latitude 51.2543 is right at the center of the Stone circle. You can check this on Google Maps. First, switch to satellite mode to see the actual site. Then search for the coordinates N51.4285714BA, 8.4198. Take note of where the red dot point sits, right in the center of the oblate circle. The probability of this happening is about 1 in a million, almost the same as the chance of being struck by lightning. There is only one possible explanation for this precision. It was intentionally chosen by the ancient architects. This shows that the 360-degree measurement system was clearly understood during that time, and they were aware of Earth's spherical shape. If the ancient people knew about the true shape of Earth, they would have likely preserved this knowledge by creating a stone circle that models Earth. This revolutionary evidence offers a completely new perspective on the capabilities of ancient humans, as well as the level of scientific and technological understanding they possessed. You see, to have this knowledge, they either had to leave Earth or be taught by extraterrestrials. The deeper I explore, the more I believe that extraterrestrials helped humanity in ancient times. Changes in the weather beneath the Earth's surface are often governed by variations occurring in this region of space. Its structure consists of atoms moving freely. Some combine to form oxygen and nitrogen molecules, then descend into the atmosphere, while others rise higher, reach the magnetosphere, and are deflected back. Changes in the ionosphere directly influence weather patterns on the ground. The physical properties of the ionosphere shift, constantly hour by hour, minute by minute, day by day, and from season to season. It becomes even more complex the closer it is to Earth's magnetic poles. Therefore, if humans could understand and control the ionosphere's variations, they could also completely influence weather changes on the surface. This is the deeper purpose behind the research program shrouded in secrecy. Once the ionosphere can be controlled, a new type of destructive weapon becomes possible, a weather weapon. So it becomes clear. Humans can indeed manipulate the weather and turn it into a weapon. Naturally, extraterrestrial beings could do the same to affect humanity. The first advantage of using weather as a weapon is that you would never know who the real attacker is. The enemy would only see what appears to be normal natural phenomena. Not to mention, weather events can cause just enough damage at levels other weapons cannot achieve. Think about it, what happens if the opponent's crops are completely destroyed? Their infrastructure built. It would appear as if you won the war by the will of heaven. You may be surprised to learn that efforts to control weather during wartime were actually carried out in Vietnam during the resistance war against the United States. Declassified documents state that a once-renowned meteorological scientist, Wassay, identity remains secret proposed to the CIA. The concept of controlled lightning, involving the use of ultra-thin metallic wires as artificial conductors to trigger lightning at desired places and times. The US also attempted to seed clouds with chemicals along the Ho Chi Minh Trail to create prolonged heavy rainfall, aiming to hinder transportation and supplies to the south due to mud and landslides. The US military succeeded in weather manipulation on a small scale, but still failed in the long war against the Vietnamese people. Looking further back in time, we can find evidence of weather weapons being used in ancient warfare across many civilizations. The story of the Great Flood is familiar to nearly everyone. Civilizations across Europe and Asia mention it as a cataclysm, marking humanity's downfall. The Hebrew Bible, the Torah, and the Islamic Quran all describe Noah's Ark. The story tells that God was displeased with humanity's sins and decided to punish them. The Great Flood was a massive cleansing. Nearly all living beings perished, but one exception remained. God told Noah how to survive the impending wrath. He built a giant ark and saved the animals he could find and his own family. The flood lasted more than 40 days, submerging the world in water and wiping out the less fortunate. In other cultures, even though they were not punished by God, they still suffered devastating floods. For example, in ancient Mesopotamia, scholars discovered clay tablets dating back 2,000 years containing almost the same story. It describes the anger of the gods, who created a great flood to destroy humanity. Millions of people believed the gods created humans to work for them to assist in building their world. But humans became too troublesome and rebellious, so the gods had to eliminate them. Disasters were simply tools of cleanup. Perhaps the ancient floods were caused by forces controlled from beyond Earth, or perhaps these beings helped humans survive nature's fury. What truly happened? To answer, we must continue our journey elsewhere. Not far south of Vietnam lies the archipelago of Indonesia, with over 17,000 islands. But our focus is not on the islands, but on 129 active volcanoes. In 1815, Mount Tambora erupted violently and exploded, releasing fire, smoke, and ash rapidly into the atmosphere. This was the largest volcanic eruption ever recorded in human history. Over 71,000 people were estimated to have died. Its impact triggered a global phenomenon lasting years. 1816 became known as the year without a summer, because the vast amounts of ash blocked sunlight and sharply reduced temperatures worldwide. Natural events only become disasters when they affect humans. Volcanoes are no exception. Eruptions have killed millions throughout history. Like other cultures, The locals believed Tambora was the work of the gods. Researchers sought out Mount Merabi, considered by Javanese mystics to be the center of the earth, to look for answers. 29 miles away sits the ancient Buddhist temple. The location is fascinating. Why here, so close to the supposed center of the earth? Borobudur is pyramid-shaped, with a large dome and 72 bell-shaped stupas, each containing a Buddha statue. Many believe this place was built to honor beings from another world who descended to help humanity. Their craft allegedly landed near Mount Merabi. The theory gains credibility when you examine the temple. It shows no signs of being a site for worshippers. Something significant must have occurred in this exact place. Every stupa points toward the sky like a rocket, perhaps. Each represents a divine vehicle used to reach Earth. In Indonesia, people truly believe in a city of gods inside Mount Merapi. Connecting this back to Tambora, what if some unknown power triggered the volcanic eruption, perhaps like starting a spacecraft? Speaking of volcanoes, we cannot ignore Hawaii in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, home to Mount Kilauea. Since 1983, it has continuously erupted. Hawaiian legends say Kilauea is the home of Pele, the goddess of fire and volcanoes. She came from the clouds, from somewhere high in the sky. A hidden, fortified, isolated place. Does that ring a bell? It resembles modern secret military bases. In fact, the US has a base built inside a hollowed-out mountain. Could ancient gods or extraterrestrials have done the same? And if such a base were discovered, perhaps they destroyed the mountain by triggering a volcanic eruption. Our ancestors worshipped nature, but perhaps there was a link between worshipping nature and worshipping a being capable of controlling nature. That being could be extraterrestrials. How much do you believe in the idea that unseen forces have shaped humanity's catastrophes? I believe it's true. It happened in the past. Humans are merely trying to rediscover lost advanced technologies. But nature's power is immense, and progress remains extremely difficult. Chapter 4. Messengers of God. How do divine commandments from a mystical realm influence the course of history? Why have some individuals throughout time predicted the future with uncanny precision? Why were some chosen to guide humanity onto a righteous path? For thousands of years, humans have been led by mysterious journeys to other worlds. Voices from the sky, angels descended to earth, or prophets claiming to be messengers of God. How could they see the future? Were they embodiments of God, or was their knowledge obtained from a more mysterious world? Could humanity's destiny have already been set by these beings? Have you ever considered that prophets might simply be spokespersons for the entities controlling Earth, declaring, "Your future is already written"? Wait for it to unfold. Humans are far too small to understand higher beings, but we can trace clues. The first location we must examine is Mount Sinai, rising in the Sinai Desert. Many believe two of the most sacred encounters in history happened here. It is said that Moses encountered the burning bush and later received the 10 Commandments at this mountain. But what was the true nature of this encounter? Was Moses an ordinary man chosen randomly, or did he possess a unique gift, the ability to connect with extraterrestrial forces? Ancient texts worldwide describe visits from gods or supernatural beings. Humanity had interactions with these entities in distant history. Moses' story is just one example of human leaders guided by divine beings. Similar accounts exist for prophets such as Elijah, Isaiah, Noah, Abraham, Enoch, and Jesus. Prophets were vital in ancient societies. They acted as intermediaries between the human world and the divine. Through them, divine presence became real to the people. Imagine a revered prophet telling you the gods were angry and you must act in a certain way. Would you obey? Most likely, yes. So where did these messages actually come from? Many prophets experienced unusual encounters with non-human entities, a connection with an intelligence far beyond humanity. Prophecies are evidence that these higher beings helped humans shape civilization, advance knowledge, and warn about future disasters. Returning to Moses' first encounter with God is described in Exodus 3, where he saw a bush engulfed in flames that did not burn. God spoke to him through this burning bush, assigning him the mission to free the Jews from Egypt. But why a burning bush? Was it truly a bush, or was Moses describing a piece of technology he couldn't comprehend? Perhaps it was a machina, three-dimensional communication device. Moses conversed with a superior being through what he perceived as a burning bush. Another encounter happened near Tel El-Daba in Egypt, believed by some researchers to be the starting point of the Jewish Exodus and Moses' second encounter with God. Exodus 13:21-22 describes God leading the people, a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. This pillar always went ahead of them. When night ended, the people encamped. When it rose, they moved. It commanded them. The description resembles modern reports of cylindrical UFOs, for ancient people. It could easily be mistaken for a glowing cloud. Their journey culminated in Moses ascending Mount Sinai, where God descended in a radiant cloud. Only Moses could enter it, protected by a pillar of fire. He stayed 40 days and received the 10 Commandments. To ancient astronaut theorists, this closely resembles alien abduction experiences, where abductees receive information or instructions. The commandments emphasize moral codes opposing human instinct: no killing, no stealing, no adultery, guiding humans beyond their primal nature. Thus, prophets may have been chosen to transmit the will of extraterrestrial beings seeking to shape human evolution. Humanity today is bound by moral standards. Unlike wild primates, we don't kill, steal, or mate indiscriminately. Someone must have taught us these principles. That someone could be extraterrestrial. Moses wasn't the only one with such encounters. According to 9th century biblical texts, the prophet Elijah also received warnings of drought and flood. These disasters indeed happened. Strangely, there's no record of Elijah's death. Some speculate he was taken into space and became immortal. Scriptures describe him being taken to heaven in a whirlwind or a fiery chariot swirling, descending light, remarkably similar to a spacecraft beam. Jumping ahead many centuries, in 1830, in New York, Joseph Smith published the Book of Mormon and founded the Church of Latter-day Saints, which today has over 14 million followers. The book records Smith's encounters with a being from another world. Smith claimed that in 1820 he received a divine vision. Later, an angel guided him to a hill containing golden plates, documenting ancient American civilizations. The angel forbade him from taking the plates until the right time. In 1827, he was finally allowed to retrieve them on the condition he show them only to those the angel approved. Curiously, the angel said he came from the star system Pleiades. Thus, the Book of Mormon is believed by some to have extraterrestrial origins. This connection between religion and extraterrestrials may seem vague, but in Asia, especially Vietnam, the most popular religion is Buddhism, so we must explore Buddhism as well. In the 4th century in Lumbini, Nepal, early Buddhist scriptures emerged, recording the supernatural birth and life of Gautama Buddha. His mother, Queen Maya, dreamed of a white elephant entering her body, after which Buddha was conceived. Later, under the Bodhi tree, he attained enlightenment. His description of enlightenment includes remembering countless past lives, suggesting a form of cosmic awareness.